Hello world, it's Birdo Prey 5, Cupla. Welcome to my review and reaction for Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 8, Surrender. So, if we remember, last week's episode, we did not see Riker and Deanna. We thought we were going to see them at the end of the week before's episode, but then they were out of last week, and last week's ended on a cliffhanger, as they all do, where Vadic was about to tell us everything we wanted to know about Jack. So my quick prediction for this episode was we were going to get nothing about Jack, and it was all going to be about Will and Deanna making it back to the ship. I'm happy to say I was a bit wrong. We learn a little bit more about Jack, but we also do get Deanna and Riker coming back into the main cast. So this is actually the episode, spoiler, as always, spoilers. This is the episode that gets us that scene at the table with all of the old cast reunited for the first time. Finally here in episode 8 of Star Trek Picard. And I don't know, unfortunate title they chose to go with was Surrender, when really this is not a surrender episode. If anything, last episode should have been called Surrender, because they literally surrendered the Titan to Vadic at the end of last episode. This episode begins, she's firmly in charge. It opens and we get a reflection of Vadic lighting a cigarette or a cigar in a glass windshield. And at first, like, oh, what is that, the front view screen? But as it zooms out, no, it is the glass ceiling, the glass dome above the bridge. Somehow you get this perfect view of her lighting this cigar from the captain's seat as she spins around. And she said this last week, let's start by taking their eyes. Actually, she said, let's start by taking their ears. But by eyes, they mean she's going to shut off their ability to view other sections of the ship. Then she says they're going to take their ears, which means cutting out the comm system. And you have a scene of some random Titan crew members running down a hall, and they just start getting shot at. And like, well, who's shooting them? Of course, none of the shots hit. So like, is she have her bad guys? What are they doing? Are they executing the crew? No, they're not executing the crew. So what did they just? It doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense as to what's really going on here. She's at the bridge. She's turning off the ability of the rest of the crew to do anything. Geordi and his daughter first mistakenly believe Lore is doing all this, and especially the daughter. And she's like, how can he keep doing this? We just unplugged him. They just unplugged him. He shouldn't have been plugged in this entire time. But Lore finally gets unplugged. And Geordi's like, oh no, it's not Lore that's been doing this. It's her. Big surprise. The person who just took over the ship is actually cutting off communications. What? I don't understand why his daughter didn't realize that either, but whatever. I don't understand why Lore was plugged in this whole time. Anyway, she's closing the doors now. There's nowhere left to run. And she's listening, even though she just said, I'm cutting off comm systems. She's listening in on the comm system, listening to all this chaos. I guess there's a setting on the comm system to listen to the entire ship. So she's listening to the chaos around the entire ship as random people are getting phasered and trapped and screaming, and she is pretending it's a symphony that she's conducting. And I don't even know what. It'd be one thing if she's like, okay, bring up sick bay, and she was listening in to what was going on in sick bay. But this is just like random hallways, and the audio is being patched to the bridge. I don't. She never gave a command to patch any audio to the bridge. But anyway, so we jump around. We're seeing all of our quote unquote heroes are all trapped in their tiny groups. Geordi is with Lore and his new daughter. Jack is with the other daughter, Sydney, and Beverly. And Seven is on the bridge, of course, with Captain Shaw and a few other people who all got taken hostage. Beverly, Picard's also with Beverly. So she's like, we're locked out of transporters, comms, security, everything. And they look at Jack like he's supposed to know something. She's still conducting her symphony, and now she decides to look at all of her Titan crew who she has captured. Every one of them, almost every one of them, is significantly taller than her. She comes to one who's crying. We switch over to Picard. So Picard says we have to get manual control. Access is denied. We must get manual control or we lose everything. You've already lost. You've already lost. Now Sydney is looking at Jack, and you can tell she wants to say something. She's like, tell him you took over my body. Tell him. But he doesn't. Not yet. She's kind of surprised he's not saying anything. Jack is clearly hearing voices again. He's backing himself into the corner of a hallway, and his eyes just turned red. But remember, no one else can see what his eyes turn red. And he's using his powers, and Sydney is asking to herself, what is he doing? And then you hear a random male voice saying, I'm all alone in here. He's looking, he hears, okay, the male voice is a random Starfleet officer. He's like, I need to regroup with my squad. And now we see his eyes turn red. You know what it is? Oh my God, it's from Game of Thrones. Oh my God, it's Game of Thrones. Jack Crusher was it Brandon? Is Jack Crusher Brandon, the one who could take over the people? He took over Hodor. He took over Hodor. Jack Crusher is Bran Stark. Yes. Bran Stark. Bran the Broken. The one that was carried by Hodor. Jack Crusher is Bran Stark. He is Bran Starking. He can Bran Stark everybody on the ship, apparently. That's how he's going to. I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised if at some point he has 7 of 9 or Shaw or something yelling, hold the door! Hold the door! That would be wonderful. But okay. So he is Bran Starking everybody. You know, it's not something I've ever seen in Star Trek. I hesitate to say, well, if you're going to steal, at least steal from the good shows. So this Starfleet guy, Bran Stark, was walking down a hallway. He saw a bunch of people hit, and he got shot. He got shot in the chest by a shapeshifter. And Jack says, oh, it's no use. It's no use. She's locked us out. She seized control of half the bloody ship. Half the bloody ship? She's got the whole fucking ship, Jack. Of course she locked you out. Why wouldn't she? So now Vadic says, attention crew of the Federation starship Titan, this is your captain speaking. You were without sight and without sound, without freedom of movement, and with a tap of her finger, you'll be without oxygen to breathe or gravity to stand. Bullshit! Bullshit! There is no way you have the money to turn off gravity, lady. Turning off gravity is a very expensive scene. I call bullshit. You'll never turn the gravity off. You might kill everybody, but you're never turning the gravity off. So anyway, Vadic is saying she's going to decide which one of these, quote, fine officers you're going to miss. She's going to execute one. She puts her cigarette out on the floor of the bridge. She says, Jack Crusher is going to come to the bridge now, or I'm going to kill one of these guys. Okay, she doesn't say it yet, but the end game here is Jack Crusher got to come up to the bridge where she's going to kill one of these people every 10 minutes. So, it's a good plan. Why doesn't she start immediately? Just, I don't know, reasons. Vadic is a compassionate villain, I suppose. So the Shrike is still out there, still has its lights on, pointed at the Titan. Like, don't forget. Oh, and I guess they left one person. There's one shapeshifter left on the Shrike. And Riker and Troi are in a holding cell on the Shrike. And Deanna is telling Riker that she's working on his wounds, that he needs to hold still. And she says, stop being so dramatic. But what is she working on his wounds with? She has no materials. They're in a holding cell. She has no dermal regenerator. She has no bandages. She doesn't even have a bottle of alcohol. She has absolutely nothing. What is she working on him? She's like, you've got to hold still, but there's nothing there. She wasn't doing anything. Now they're talking like they haven't spoken since season 1. She's like, you've changed. It's been so long. He's like, he hasn't felt the bleakness in the nebula since his son died. But when he came out of it, all he wanted to do was to see Deanna's face. He missed loving you, Imzadi. And she's like, oh, you're definitely concussed. He says, but at least when they kill us, at least I'll die knowing I gave you one final dose of Riker charm. Uh-oh. And she said that you should know the changeling that came home pretending to be you was pretty charming too. And he's like, how charming? She's like, good in bed, bad at pizza. So she effed the changeling. He's like, I knew they were imposters the moment they arrived. But now there were multiple changelings? How many changelings did you fuck, Deanna? She's like, well, these changelings, she can't read changelings, though these changelings are different. He's like, I know, they're advanced. And now Deanna is saying, did we do the right thing giving them a compromised code? And Riker said, well, I couldn't let them torture you anymore. And he's like, and I knew Jean-Luc would do something. He would no doubt set up a classic Jean-Luc Picard trick. And no doubt he's got her on the ropes. And of course they cut back over to the Titan, and Vadic is in full control, and Vadic is in the captain's seat, and she's spinning around. And she's like, you know what? I really like this seat. We're going to take this when we leave. And so now Seven and Shaw are talking amongst themselves, and Seven is yelling at Shaw. She's like, don't give me that look. I know that look. And Shor's like, you should have blown the turbo shaft. And she's like, I would have made the same decision again. And for some reason now, they want to retcon. They want us to think the only way to the bridge was through the turbo lift. They want us to think. I was wondering why they said that last episode. Why did they want to say the only way through the bridge is through the turbo shaft? Because they're trying to retcon that had she blown up the turbo shaft, no one would have been able to take over the ship. Except that you and I, hopefully, are not idiots, and we all remember the point, I believe it was episode 3 or thereabouts, that Jack Crusher was denied access to the bridge from the corridor. It was a very important, I specifically mentioned that scene because it was the very first time I could remember seeing anybody try to access the bridge through a corridor instead of a turbo lift. I was like, holy shit, the Titan actually has a corridor that goes to the bridge. Why didn't, and there was a security guard there. And there was a security guard there that said, hey, Jack, sorry, you can't come on the bridge. You're not a member of this crew. You're not a member of Starfleet. Goodbye. We're busy. Take care. And he had to go back down to the sick bay. And I said, it's kind of weird that he would take the long way around when he was rushing to the bridge when there was a turbo lift that went from sick bay to the bridge directly, because Picard took it later that episode. And now we're being told that the only way to the bridge is through the turbo lift, and had she blown up the turbo lift, it would have protected the bridge. Like, everybody forgets that now there was no other way to get to the bridge. That whole time Jack took the long way around just simply doesn't exist anymore. So 7 is saying she would do it all again. She draws the line of trading lives. Jack says, you're a Starfleet officer. You don't have the luxury of making those decisions. And she's like, the luxury of saving your life. He says, you don't have that luxury. Jack is like, you should have killed us, and this would have been over. He's like, this hasn't even begun yet. And 7 takes this moment when she's completely in the wrong to stand up for herself and her name. And he's like, Commander Hansen. And she's like, my name is 7 of 9. And he doesn't give a shit. He's like, it's not just you or me. This is going to involve everybody, this entire fucking crew. You ruin the lives. You put the lives in jeopardy of everybody on this ship by not blowing up the goddamn turbo lift. And to be honest, he's 100% correct. If blowing up the turbo lift would have stopped Vadic from getting on the bridge, he should have done it. Vadic is getting tired of waiting for Jack, so she's like, send a team to find him. And now she decides to open up a channel and talk to the entire ship herself. And say, Jack, you're forcing this suffering and your chaos upon your crew, and you refuse me. So now she says, you have 10 minutes to come to the bridge, or she'll execute one crew member every 10 minutes that follow. Starting now. So now we're going to have the longest decision to find which person she's going to shoot. So Jack is like, okay, he's going to go up, but Beverly stops him. She's going to go. What else can it be? Where would a changeling reside but the Great Link, the home world? So Picard is saying, no, your focus on you is saying it's infinitely more complicated than that. So then Jack says, let's be clear, I'm not a changeling. I've never changed into anything. He's certainly, nobody accused Jack of being a changeling. Although, to be honest, I did start thinking since last episode, what if Beverly has been a changeling this entire time? Like all of TNG, Beverly was one of the 100 or so changelings that they sent out. And her entire life, she knew she was a changeling, but she took human form. And because she's a doctor, she was able to con her way through Starfleet. And she, knowing she was a shapeshifter, but had taken human form, she had sex with Picard, and her son is technically half shapeshifter, but he doesn't know it. That was just a theory that I thought about since last episode. And now I see Jack trying to convince everybody he's not a shapeshifter, and I have to wonder, is he a shapeshifter? So now Jack finally admits that he has the powers of Brandon Stark. He says, did you guys ever see Game of Thrones? And Picard's like, of course we've seen Game of Thrones. It's still the biggest HBO special ever, 400 years later. And he's like, well, Dad, I'm basically Brandon Stark. And he's like, oh shit, you need Hodor to carry you around? He's like, no, I can take the eyes, I can see through the eyes of any person or animal on the ship. And I can even control them. And they're like, holy shit, you really are Brandon Stark. So how can you do that? He's like, how can you help? Because Vadic has control of everybody on the ship. And he's like, well, I can just take over somebody on the bridge. Then I'll be on the bridge. We can control one of our own. Oh, why don't you control one of Vadic's guys? How about that? He says he has to try. And of course, he will. Meanwhile, Vadic is still trying to figure out which person she should execute. She's walking up and down the line. Seven is there. Random Asian guy on the end. It looks like he's going to be the bad guy. And of course, random Asian guy on the end. His eyes glowed red. What? Picard talking about a codex. Of course, this guy happened to be standing close enough to a console to type something in. Nobody notices he's typing it in until the very end. Security override authorized by Admiral Jean-Luc Picard. And Vadic says, how did you know Jean-Luc Picard's override codex? And she says, she knows Jack can do it. She's like, are you in there, Jack Crusher? She's like, oh, look at you, Jack. Finally living up to all your potential. She knew Jack could do this. She knew Jack could take somebody over. I want to know what the fuck is an override codex. Because again, in episode 1, they told us what a codex is. They explained to us what a codex is. It's for communications. There's no way codex works into this. This was a code, not a codex. Okay? They explained to us what a codex is in episode 1, and now they're going back on that. So she picked a random woman. She's now on her knees. They're going to shoot the random woman. If, what's your name? Ensign Kovarin Esmar. She's for communications. And Jack is gonna, if Jack doesn't go up, they're gonna kill her. Now the random Asian guy, they got him on his knees too. She's yelling, he asked what his name was. She's like, no, I don't want to hear that. Tell me something about someone who loves you. And he says, my son loves me. She's like, oh, a son. Picard has a son? why don't you tell him to come up here, Picard? Oh, she's like, why don't you tell him to come up here? He says, I can't tell him to come up here because I'm Starfleet. Wrong answer. Even Shaw like turns away. He knows what's coming. And then Vadic says, you want to know what control looks like? And then she puts the gun up to the girl that she has on her knees. And she's about to pull the trigger. The girl starts crying. And then Vadic points at another random woman and just eradicates her. It was set to vaporize. She just executed Lieutenant Tavine. Seven says, they just executed Lieutenant Tavine. Vadic says, Jack, come to the bridge. Else we'll have to repeat this exercise again and again. And she's smiling. Vadic's open, big eyes smile. You can tell she's happy about this. So Vadic is crazy. So Riker and Deanna are talking again. They said the Titan's still outgunned, and Riker's like, we're going to survive. We might not survive this. And he's saying Testra, their daughter, she might lose everything. And now Deanna is getting mad at Riker, saying that how dare you give up? As soon as Picard called you, you put half the galaxy between us. You were leaving. Oh, and now we find out the truth. We found out the truth that Deanna used her Betazoid powers to get into Riker's head, to dull the truth. She tried to erase his memories of his own son to prevent him from being so broken. Oh, she said that she wasn't trying to erase it. She was just trying to take it, to help him carry it. But she forgot something all counselors should remember. You don't counsel your loved ones? No. You can't skip to the end of healing. Oh, and she goes and she hugs him, and he puts his hands, one hand very close to her ass. Very close to her ass. And then, now they're finding out that nobody likes Nepenthe. Nobody likes Nepenthe. She's like, no, we moved to Nepenthe for Thad. But he thought Deanna loved Nepenthe. And Deanna thought Riker loved Nepenthe. She's like, no, it's terrible. Red Wing Banshees, they're not country people. They're both city folk. They hate it out in the woods. They can't wait to go back to the city. She misses the crowds, the Roctagino lattes, and people. She misses people. Angry, joyful, complicated people. She's like, why are we there then? Nobody wants to live in Nepenthe. You know what, Will? You know what, Deanna? I think there is somebody in your house who genuinely does love the rabbits and the pizza. Your daughter seemed to care a lot. And so the shapeshifter came in to save Riker for whatever reason after, 10 minutes of Deanna and Riker talking together, hugging each other, and God knows what else they were doing. The shapeshifter finally came in for no particular reason, just to get angry at them. And at that moment, Worf comes back. Yay, Worf is back. Worf kills the shapeshifter and saves them. And how does he kill the shapeshifter? With his sword, of course. And then he follows up with I believe a phaser to kill it. And Deanna is so happy Worf is there. And Riker is too. And they both go hug him. they both go hug him. And Worf is like, personal space is a right. And then they both kind of back off. And then Worf says, Deanna, understand, remember, the last time we saw Worf and Deanna, they were together. They were together in all good things. Worf and Deanna, they were in a relationship. Okay, excuse me. The last time we saw Worf and Deanna together was technically in Nemesis, where Deanna married Riker. But in all good things, Worf and Deanna were in a relationship. So Worf goes to Deanna with Riker right there and says, Deanna, I have counted the days since I last saw you. Like waves in the ocean, constant and unending. I've thought of your emphatic gifts. He's just going off and off about how much he misses Deanna. And I'll be honest, as a Worf fan, it's a little much. And as a Dax fan, it's a bit unsettling. However, it's fucking hilarious too, because he's saying all this stuff in front of Riker, who every second is getting more and more angry. And he's wondering, is this a joke? He thought about her gifts during his self-evaluation, and Deanna says, oh, that's wonderful, Worf. And Riker says, no, that's deeply inappropriate. And Worf is like, I've done work on myself. Deanna is like telling Riker to like shut up without saying shut up. The work he's done on himself, the level of sensitivity has been in more ways than one, thanks to her. And Riker says, wait, is this a rescue mission or are you just going to keep talking? So Worf says, we must leave, but first there's something you guys must see. Oh, and there is what is now a tiny cloaked ship. I'm assuming that is supposed to be the La Sirena. And I realized that the La Sirena had a cloak in season 2 of Picard. I couldn't remember back if it had a cloak in season 1 of Picard. But I knew it had it in season 2. But then I wasn't sure if the cloak in season 2 was only because of the altered timeline or not. But I thought there was a pretty decent chance the La Sirena had a cloak this whole time. Now, if the La Sirena had a cloaking device this whole time, why did they have to go get a cloaking device off of the Klingon bird of prey? Why did no one think of using the La Sirena? Blah, 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 blah. So I didn't think they were going to show us a cloaking device on the La Sirena, but sure enough, we see it, and all we see is a tiny cloaked ship. I don't know why they're not showing us the La Sirena. Obviously, I guess if they showed up, then they would have to explain why the Shrike doesn't notice the La Sirena is there. But on the other hand, if they don't show us the La Sirena and they just show us this like wavy line where the La Sirena should be, I suspect it saves money by not having to use the La Sirena 3D model. I don't know. But so this tiny ship is right above the Shrike. So we go back to the Titan, and Jack says, what other choice do we have? The only way this ends is if he turns himself over, and like she's going to find him eventually. Now, Sidney LaForge is saying in a year she could maybe write code that could override Vadic's commands. In a month, maybe her father, maybe Geordi could do it in a month. It would take her a year. It would take Geordi a month. But to do it in minutes, well, that would need some sort of asynchronous AI matrix capable of computational speeds beyond 90 trillion operations a second. Oh my God. Well, isn't it just our luck? Isn't it just our luck that we have something exactly like that on the ship? It's called data. Oh my God. So this is how they're going to go back to data. Picard is shaking his head. He's like, oh, I got an idea. 90 million quantumtations per second. Yay, let's get data. He doesn't say it, but he smiles. He smiles. And there it is. There it is. Geordi is asking Data, can you hear me? Can you hear me in there? Or am I talking to Lore? And the door's open, and Geordi, oh, okay. Geordi pulls out his phaser, and Picard, Beverly, Jack, and Sydney come in through the door with their 4 phasers trained on Geordi. So, okay, so they have to figure out if any of them are shapeshifters. So Geordi, with his lone phaser, I don't even know where his other daughter is at this point. She should be here. And Data/Lore just standing there looking like an idiot. So Geordi says, 6 years ago, you brought a gift to my anniversary dinner on Rigel. And Picard answers back, yes, a Chateau Picard Bordeaux, which you said was too dry, and your taste in wine is pedestrian at best. And Geordi confirmed, okay, that's definitely Picard. His other daughter puts her hands down, and all the phasers power off. So Beverly says, Geordi, we have a plan to regain control of the ship, but we need to talk to your friend. And Geordi's like, what? You can't risk reconnecting him. Data's not alone in there. And Picard's like, but you said there was some type of partition separating Data's matrix from Lore. And Geordi's like, yeah, it's a good thing too, because there'd be nothing left of Data. Lore would just erase Data. So Picard says, can't we just reverse that? Raise the partition, and then Data erases Lore and takes control of the ship. And Geordi, instead of saying, no, you idiot, that's not how any of this works, raise the partition. That doesn't even make any fucking sense. I'm sorry. It doesn't make the least bit of sense from an engineering perspective, but whatever. Instead, Geordi's going to go the route, no, Data's ethical subroutines won't permit him to take a life. Well, you know what? Turn off his ethical subroutines. It wouldn't be the first time. Once you turn off Data's ethical subroutines, he's basically a monster. You can get him to do anything you want. Sydney says, Dad, we're out of options. That, I think, is best told by Admiral Picard. You don't have any say in this, lady. Sorry. Not to belittle you, but you don't know the first thing about Data. Geordi says, uh-oh, okay, well, it's going to take time. No, time is the one thing they don't have. So now Jack says, oh, I can get you time. And everybody agrees to let Jack go. The entire point of this was to prevent Jack from going on the bridge. And now Jack is presumably going right up to the bridge to buy them time. The entire point of getting Data up was because they didn't have time. Oh my God. Of course, we only have one chance at removing the partition, Geordi says. And we see this graphic where half of the dots in the brain are red and half are blue. So I'm assuming the red dots are Lore and the blue dots are Data. And so as soon as we remove the partition, there's no going back. And so they hook him back up. And he says, Data, if you can hear me, you better buckle up. And now they're lowering the partition. And there's a there's a progress bar as the partition lowers. So now we're inside Data's mind, and we have Data and Lore in a very white background. And Lore is saying, Data, your friends are removing the partition between us. He's hoping you will overpower me so they can regain control of the ship. But whatever he's attempting is only going to hasten the end for you. Geordi is talking with Data in a memory. They're saying, so everything in here has some significance. And so Lore is saying, oh, you're reminiscing. And Data is just pulling old artifacts out of the air. And he's got a Sherlock Holmes hat. And Lore is like reminiscing, scanning through meaningless memorabilia. And so Lore is like a force field is keeping Lore away from Data. I assume that's the firewall or whatever they called it, that the partition that's protecting them. And Lore is like, in my mind, you would find mightier things, symbols of power and conquest, the only sensible measure of a success of one's life. While you collect trinkets, and now he's got Sherlock Holmes' pipe. And he's like, no, these trinkets are my memories, the only sensible measure of a worth of a life. And Lore is like disgusted. And there goes down the partition. He says, what a fairy tale it's been. While Lore was left abandoned and alone, you were showered with all the love and friendship a galaxy could offer. What a waste. You can't even feel enough to enjoy it. What he had a motion chip. Why would you say that, Lore? So Lore takes the Sherlock Holmes pipe out of Data's hand, and Data starts getting like electrocuted, and you can tell it's not pleasant. He's like, what have you done? Data's asking, what have you done? Lore is saying, I'm overpowering you, as I always could. One life form replacing another. He says, evolution, my dear Watson, as Lore puts the pipe in his mouth. So now we're back at the Shrike, and we've got Rafi is there. I forgot about Rafi. Worf checks that Rafi's still her. She just says, don't worry, it's still me. Oh, and there's the body of Jean-Luc Picard. There is the golem body of Jean-Luc Picard. And, oh, wait, did we just get to see? Oh, my God. Oh, he's got, thankfully, goddamn. Thankfully, the dead body, the body of Jean-Luc Picard, the dead body is wearing shorts. They're flesh-colored shorts, but shorts nonetheless. So it saves us from having to see what Jean-Luc Picard has between his legs. It saves us that. Now, granted, I'm happy. I don't want to see it, but I also don't understand why you would put shorts on a dead body. So Worf says, because Deanna feels bad seeing the dead body. Worf is like, don't feel bad. It's only his former shell. And that is a very Klingon thing to say. Klingons do not value the body after death. Every time a Klingon died, they would always say, do what you want with the body. It's only a shell. Their soul is gone now. Their soul has gone to Stovacor if they're an honorable warrior, or if they were a loser, they've gone to, Feklar to sail the Black Fleet, the unhonored dead. I wonder where Picard is, because he kind of cheated death. I would think Worf figures the real Picard is in Stovacor, and this robot Picard really doesn't count. Rafi is reminding this was his biological body before he went positronic. And she said, this is what the changelings really wanted. And I'm like, well, why is it here if they wanted it? It wasn't Picard's body they wanted. It's what it contained. They removed part of his parietal lobe, sections that were infected with Irrimatic syndrome. And Riker says, why the hell would they want that? And Rafi thinks she can download the database. And Deanna and Rafi introduce themselves. She's like, strange days, huh? Rafi says, yeah, you're telling me. So we got a download complete. And now Riker is trying to call the Titan. And they find out that they've lost control of the Titan. The shields are up, communications are down, and the alarm is going off. Oh, wait. Maybe it's not the La Serena. Excuse me. They're saying they must return to the shuttle. Where did the shuttle come from? And why does the shuttle have oh my God, why does the shuttle have a cloaking device? So now we're on the Titan, and one of the strange Birdmen security guys for Vadic is telling Vadic it's possible they have a cloaked ship nearby. And Vadic says, it's time for me to do another demonstration of my impatience. And the turbo lift is active. Somebody's on the turbo lift. So let's all head out. Let's all go wait and see what's going on the turbo lift. Never have I ever heard on a Starfleet bridge before an alert when the turbo lift is active. But fine. So they all keeping their eyes on the turbo lift. Phasers are pointed at it. And who's coming out of the turbo lift? But it's Jack. And his hands are behind his back. Vadic says, baby boy, I was sure you'd decline my invitation. He said, no, my mother taught me better manners than that. 2 minutes ago, she wanted me to never come to the bridge, but now I'm here. He says, I brought you a gift. And there's this ball that's blinking red. It looks like a grenade. But the computer says unknown device detected. It looks Klingon. It looks Klingon because it has, I don't know, it kind of looks like the Klingon symbol kind of engraved in it. I'm guessing that since the Federation computer doesn't know what it is, it would make sense if it was Klingon, since Worf was there, right? Wait, did Worf? No. No, I don't know how they would get this. Honestly, I don't know how they would get this unknown device yet. But so Jack has this unknown device that the computer can't detect what it is. And so it says, it warns everybody that there's an unknown device detected. Why did it wait? Why did the computer wait till he pulls it out? I mean, clearly it must have scanned this and it must have seen it when it was in his hand behind his back. It wasn't until after he pulls it out that it says, warning, unknown device detected. And Vadic is scared, and we cut away. Cut away to another scene. And we're back, and we have Geordi is saying Lore's matrix is growing, it's overriding data. It's devouring data bit by bit. Picard says there must be a way to stop it. And Geordi says, no, Jean-Luc, it's over. It's all Data's battle now. And Data is inside with his brother again. He says Data saying it's harder to maintain focus. And Lore is laughing at him. He's like, no, I'm consuming you. What you're fighting hard to do is to exist. He's like, any moment now, I'm going to consume you. I'm going to override you. And your memories are all going to fade away. Uh-oh. Oh, Denise Crosby. Denise Crosby is in it. Okay. Not really. Like, I don't think Denise Crosby gets a paycheck. But Data just pulled out his hologram. His hologram that Tasha Yar made for him after their encounter, after that episode, The Naked Time. The Naked Now. After that episode, The Naked Now, where Tasha Yar famously asked Data if he is anatomically correct, and he assures her he is, and programmed in multiple techniques. And she's like, yep, that's what I want right now. And they go off to her quarters. And then after that, she made this hologram thing for Data, so Data could look at her anytime he wanted, I guess. And so that every time this comes out, this is to remind us that Tasha Yar fucked Data. And so he brings it out with all of his, his most memorable gifts. And so, yeah, we do. We actually do get a Tasha Yar cameo. We get a Tasha Yar cameo, but one they probably don't have to pay for, because it was still the old Tasha Yar. Anyway, Lore just takes it and throws it over his shoulder, and it evaporates into nothingness. Picard is talking to him. He says, we need to retake the bridge. So now we're back on the bridge, and Jack is like, you already activated what appears to be a grenade, but is clearly not a grenade. And so Vadic says, I'm confused. Do you think that will kill me? To Jack. And Jack says, well, it might kill you. I don't know. But I know it will kill me. And now Vadic is a little scared. If you want me alive, you'll let them go. There's no point in resisting. And Vadic inhales. She's like, Jack, Jack, Jack. Like a jack in the box, ready to pop, pop, pop. I feel like that was ad-libbed. I don't know. Why would they be talking about a jack in the box? I don't. So Vadic says, actually, they served their purpose. Lock them in there. That's not letting them go. You're just locking them in the ready room instead of the bridge. How is that helpful? Why would Jack accept that? You'd say, no, let them all go down to engineering. I want them all in engineering. I want them where they're safe. I don't want them on the fucking bridge. I don't want them locked in the fucking... Why would locking them in the ready room be better than having them locked on the bridge? But for some reason, that's perfectly fine with Jack. And he looks at Captain Shaw and gives him a nod, like, okay, just do it. Anyway, for some reason, 7 of 9 won't go in the ready room. And he yells at her again, Hansen, what are you doing? And she's like, accepting the consequences. And Vadic is perfectly fine with 7 staying, because of course she is. Nobody's shooting. Everybody's got phasers. All of Vadic's people have phasers, and they all let 7 come out. Like, wouldn't you just fucking shoot her? Even if you don't want to kill her. Just shoot her on stun and throw her in the fucking room with everybody else. No, because the plot calls for 7 to be on the bridge, clearly. So Jack is like, Vadic, I'm here. He's like, tell me, what do you want from me? And she's like, I want your gifts. He's like, my gifts? Well, you know so much about me. Indulge me, flatter me. What are they? She's like, oh, Jack Crusher. What's it like roaming from planet to planet? Species to species. Never able to outrun that awful, constant shadow. The shadow knows. Oh, a shadow of isolation, loneliness. You know, he doesn't look like a guy who's all that lonely to me. A life of service to others, a calling, or was it guilt? Did you always know deep, deep down, asked Vadic, what you are? He's like, look, Vadic, if you want to stop talking in circles, batshit circles, I'm all ears. And she feels the ears. Ears, yes. She feels her ear. I don't know, shapeshifters usually had trouble with ears. Was Jack always a shapeshifter? She's like, you've heard the voices. What's that like? After years of solitude, of silence, then finally, so many voices. I can help you, she says. Put the pieces together, the answers. And about this time, you realize they're going to push this back another episode. We're not going to get the answers on Jack this episode. She's like, are you not curious to see what's behind the red door? How did Vadic know it was a red door? And Seven is like, what is she talking about? And now Jack is actually curious. We see the red door in his brain. We said the red door in his mind. And Vadic is still smiling. Seven's like, what the hell are you talking about? And now we're going back to Data and Lore. And Data has a pack of cards. He's like, this deck of cards represents the memory of me playing poker all the time with my friends. And he says, this belongs to you now. So Lore takes the deck of cards. He's like, why are you giving this to me? And Data says, because you've had nothing. And now we get where the term surrender comes from. So Picard and Geordi are looking at all the blue dots turning red. Lore's taking over. And Picard says, this looks like surrender to me, Geordi. Like Data's just giving up. Oh no, now Spot is here. Spot. Data's like, here's my cat, Spot. Spot taught me how to love. And he gives Spot to Lore. Says, that was the last of me. And now Data is falling apart. And Lore is so happy. Lore is smiling. And Data's about to die for the third time. Oh my God, it was a red wave. It was a red wave. Lore took over the entire brain. Data's dead. But did Data give enough of himself to Lore to make Lore indistinguishable from Data? Spot meows. Lore is actually happy. Oh no! Lore is turning into being electrocuted now. Oh, Data's back. Data came back. It was a trick. Oh no, it was a blue wave. Holy shit. It looked like it was a red wave, but after further calculations, it was a blue wave. Oh my God. What are the chances? Total blue wave. Data's back. Lore is the one who lost. I don't know how, but Data says, I gave you everything that was me, and as a sense, you became me. Which I understood, but now Data says, we are me. But then he says goodbye to Lore. And Lore says, goodbye, brother. So instead of them absorbing each other, Data clearly wins. Data clearly wins, and now Data comes back, and he becomes conscious again. And Geordi asks, Data? Like, is that you? And Data says, yes. Yes, it's me. And Picard says, Data, we need your help. The ship is in trouble. And Data's like, don't say another word. I got it. And Data turns the ship back on, accessing ship systems. Shuttlecraft Emerson. So shuttle, it's the Forge. We read you. So yeah, just as Data was turning everything on, Will Riker was messaging over. So now Data is talking to Vadic and says, "This is your friendly AI system." Pissed. He's initiating an immediate shift change. Rafi is fighting 5 changelings, at least 3 to 5 changelings with swords. Rafi has like those swords like Donatello has on the Ninja Turtles. And oh my God, I don't understand this. All the fucking changelings have phasers. Why do they allow Rafi to bring a knife to a fucking phaser fight? Rafi successfully takes out at least 3 changelings with phasers set to kill, and she stabs all the changelings. She stabs and kills the fucking changelings. And so, okay, so now Jack activates the device, and remember, it said unknown device. It said unknown device. So it clearly wasn't a grenade like they made us think it was. It's actually a personal force shield. It's a personal force shield. So the fact that Seven stayed on the bridge and just so happened to be close enough to Jack, he's inside the personal force field. But of course, Vadic and her bad guys, none of them are. Rafi is killing the changelings, and oh, there's Worf. Worf kills the changeling with a phaser, and now Jack is communicating with Picard. Luckily, the communications are open, and he says, "Okay." He says, "Now, Picard, do it." And Picard says, "Okay, open the evacuation hatch now." And an alarm blasts on the bridge. And what the fuck? No. Seven yells, "Get off my bridge." And Vadic drops the second F-bomb of the season. Although I can kinda understand this. And Vadic says, "Oh, fucking solids." And there's a fucking airlock on the bridge. There's a fucking airlock on the bridge. Who the fuck installs an airlock directly on the bridge? Oh my fucking God. The bridge opens. The bridge opens, and everybody on the bridge gets sucked out into space. The bridge opens. Everybody on the bridge gets sucked out into space. Who the fuck would work on that bridge? Who would work on that bridge knowing there's a fucking setting to space everyone on the bridge? Oh my fucking God. And of course, going out into space is going to kill Vadic and her changelings, when we knew from Deep Space Nine, changelings can exist in space. Changelings don't need air to breathe. Changelings could turn into fucking ships. Okay, biologically looking ships. But changelings could fucking travel at warp speed without a spaceship. They could live in space. So apparently these new changelings, they die in space. How fucking convenient. How effing convenient. So this is it. Vadic dies. Vadic dies The window that's the view screen opens to be an airlock. And we see Vadic freezing. Vadic is spinning in space, and she's freezing over solid. And what's going to happen? Oh, she's going to hit. She's sucked into the Shrike. Vadic's frozen body strikes the Shrike and breaks into 1,000,000 pieces. Vadic is dead. And 7 says, Captain Shaw, may I present your ship back? And he says, stations, we're not done yet. Esmar said, Captain Riker's team is back on board. And Shaw says, Commander, you take this one. Note, he doesn't say 7, but he also doesn't say Hansen. He says, Commander, you take that one. And what is she going to do? And 7 says, target the Shrike. Give it everything we got. Fire. Why are you destroying the Shrike? No, you idiots. They sent, oh my God, like 6 photon torpedoes. 6 photon torpedoes, and it destroys the Shrike. Why would you destroy the Shrike, you idiots? You need clues. How do you know there's not fucking evidence that you need on the Shrike? Worf is going around vaporizing the bodies of the changelings that are left, and Worf is telling Rafi that she needs help with her technique, and Will and Deanna come running out, and Deanna collapses and then gets back up, and they're like, what's wrong, Deanna? And Deanna says, there's a darkness on this ship, an all-consuming darkness. And obviously she means Jack. So now we're with Data and Picard. And Data's like, I've changed. I'm clearly older, but I'm still myself again. It's always been his desire to know the totality of human experience. And he says, I've already tasted death. But this, neck cracking. This is new. He's happy to be old. Data is happy to be old. He's happy to experience pain and all the problems with growing old. Why would you make an android that has to crack his neck? So Data says, I believe we're good here. Oh, he can use contractions. Geordi says, oh, you can use contraction. Oh, he is capable of using contractions now. And humor. It was a joke. Many things are new to him, including himself. But he is still Data. But he's also lore, before, and all Dr. Soon programmed into the body. So Geordi's like, how do you feel? And Data's just like, I feel, ... I feel. Geordi says, I hope that you can sense as fully as any human has ever felt anything how happy I am to have my friend back. He said, it would be negligent of him not to say, despite his many changes, one thing will remain forever constant: my gratitude for your friendship. And they both give each other a head chuck, whatever, a nod. And they walk into the briefing room, and finally the scene we were all promised. The entire old cast sitting around the table. We've got Will Riker, Geordi introducing a new version of an old friend. Data, Will says, with an upgrade, Picard said, the last time we spoke, you wished to experience death. And as happy as I am that you're here, I hope I haven't betrayed your wish. And Data says, no, sir. I know that me is resting peacefully. But this me, you would rather be no place in the universe. And the TNG credits, music plays. And Picard says to join us at the table. So why is it just them? Why is it just them? Why isn't Captain Shaw there? Why isn't Seven there? It's just the old crew. Why isn't Jack there? It's Beverly. It's Beverly, Geordi, Riker, Deanna, Picard, Data, and Worf. So now we're hearing, I think, a lot of what the actors wanted to say at the same time as the characters. Beverly is saying, in all these years, I want you to know there's not a day that went by they haven't missed us all. And Troi says, and we've missed you too. She said, I haven't found myself talking to you on my darkest days and my happiest days. You give really good advice even when you're not there. And they hold their hands. Worf says, I've slaughtered countless enemies and considered sending their heads to you all. But I was advised that was passive aggressive. I don't think that's passive aggressive at all. I think it's something crazy, but I don't think passive aggressive. But they laugh it off. They laugh it off. Picard says, all that matters is that we are together once more, because I need all of you. Changelings have infiltrated Starfleet. So I was thinking, because they replayed this earlier in the episode, when Tuvok was on screen, and then Tuvok was clearly a changeling, and then Tuvok changed on screen from Tuvok to zombie Will Riker. At that moment, I realized it's not just that Tuvok's ship was taken over by changelings. It wasn't just that Tuvok was taken over by changeling. Every single person on his ship, surely at least every single person on that bridge, must be a changeling. Otherwise, they would have seen their captain change shape in front of them, and they'd be like, holy shit, shapeshifters have taken over the ship. So everybody on that entire ship has to be a shapeshifter. If they're willing to change shape in front of people, how many shapeshifters are involved here? Because, I figure Tuvok's ship, you need at least, 10? If only it was the bridge crew and somehow they kept it from everybody else. At least 10. But more likely, 50, 100 people? How many shapeshifters are involved here? I don't think there's anything left of Starfleet. Or if Tuvok was the only ship that they had complete control over. It doesn't make any sense for them to change shape on screen on an open channel. And they're giving up. It doesn't make any sense. So Geordi says, whatever it is they've got planned, Frontier Day is just hours away. And Riker says, we're analyzing data we pulled from the Shrike. Good thing you pulled it before Seven blew up the ship. She had no idea. She honestly didn't even know if anybody was on it. Data says this is all factual information that ignores emotional truth. And Deanna says, yes, something she felt the moment she set foot on the vessel. Whatever they've got planned for Frontier Day is tied directly to Jack. And Beverly says there's something happening to Jack. He has visions and voices, something we can't explain. Picard says, whatever the cause, it's getting stronger. Troi says, there's a darkness. There's a darkness with that boy. Well, not in him, but around him, passing through him, and a voice inside him. Ancient and weak, but a voice that isn't his own. And they're all looking at each other. And Deanna says, I think it's time. I met your son. And Beverly is giving her the okay. The mother's okay. And then the Titan cloaks. Because we forgot the Titan has the cloaking device. So Jack and Deanna are in his quarters, I guess. And Jack is like, I don't normally seek out, this type of thing. And Deanna says, well, in truth, I would wait for you to seek me out. But we're a little rushed, come on, just give me your hands. And let's see what I can figure out here. And Deanna, their eyes open up. She's like, Jack, stay with me. Jack he's tearing up. She's like, Jack, have you ever, in your dreams, in your imagination, or even when you're awake, have you ever seen a door? When did seeing Deanna feel like going to a psychic? He says, yes, he's seen a door, but he's afraid to open it. She's like, why are you afraid to open it? He's like, because I'm terrified of what's behind it. So Deanna says, it's time to open the door. And we're seeing the door in his mind. And Deanna's like, we'll go together. You're not alone. And you're seeing these terrible scenes of destruction. We're seeing the red door at the end of a Federation hallway. And we're seeing the black vines everywhere. And now and there's the keyhole in the door. And there's glowing red through the keyhole. And Jack puts his hand on the doorknob. And he's about to open this old-timey door. And we hear a voice yells, Jack! And Deanna's standing next to him. And end of episode. They're going to put this off another fucking episode. Oh my fucking God. I can't fucking take it. I'm sorry. If they told us what was behind the door this episode, maybe. I am so fucking over this. They're going to go on to at least the 9th episode before we figure out what the hell's going on with Jack. This whole episode felt like it could have been 20 minutes. I mean, it was over technically 52 minutes with all the before and after and the ending scenes, but very little actually happened. I'm not particularly impressed. We got our scene with the old crew, and to be honest, it was nothing. It was nothing compared to seeing all the ships at the Fleet Museum. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel earned. It didn't make sense as to why only those people were in the meeting. Don't get me wrong, it was better than last week's. It was better than last week's episode, which I initially gave a 0 and then maybe figured it was probably closer to a 2. This was a so-so episode at best. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. And I hope next week we get some answers. Because if they leave all the answers to the last episode, I can assure you it's not going to end well. 5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. Please remember to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this. And if you don't, well, thank you anyway for listening this far. Kapla all, bird out.